Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar this morning. We're very excited about today's Fireside chat. Today, we will be having our friend Auden Hinton from Ellie Mae and our CEO and founder, Neha Simpa, joining us in today's conversation. So without further ado, be handing over the mic to Neha.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I'm here in Austin, Texas, and enjoying the warm weather. I know we're all going through a heat wave, so hope everyone is staying safe and hydrated. I'm very excited to be here to introduce one of our customers and partners at Content Stack. First, I'll just mention I'm the founder and CEO of Content Stack. Content Stack is essentially a digital platform to help you with modernizing all of your digital experiences and managing content more effectively. And I will, without further ado, turn it over to Auden to introduce himself.
Hi, thanks for having me. So I'm Auden Hinton. I'm Director of Digital Experience at Ellie Mae. So it just makes sense that we're huge advocates of Content Stack, it being a content experience platform. But we touch on the whole digital footprint and user journey from end to end, whether it be web properties, a little bit of product, some digital advertising that we do. At the foundation, our CMS is kind of the foundation of everything that we build. Ellie Mae is technology that's powering the American dream. We automate the automatable in the residential mortgage industry. We've been doing it for about 23 years. And I think that's a good comprehensive overview of myself and what we're trying to do.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I love the tagline. We were just chatting about it, building technology that powers the American dream. This is super powerful. And the team that Auden runs and has built over at Ellie Mae is very impressive in how they are ahead of the game, essentially, in building digital experiences that are very engaging and personalized and essentially tracking user journeys in a way that a lot of companies aspire to do. And so I'm excited that we're going to learn a little bit more about that today and learn from some of the leaders that are paving the path forward for that type of technology adoption. So one thing I just want to mention about Ellie Mae, because it's in the recent news, and if you may or may not have seen it, but there's now news out that Ellie Mae will be purchased for $11 billion. And that's very exciting given that just a little bit over a year ago, there was a transaction for just over $3.5 million. So in a year span, the team at Ellie Mae has created 3x value in the organization, which is exciting in and of itself, just to be a part of that journey with them. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about that. And then just jump into, your experience, Auden, in choosing Content Stack, why you chose it, and essentially how it's helped in sort of your experience using the product.
Sure. So incredibly excited about the recent news. We're looking forward to what it'll mean for us. We've been through acquisitions before. It introduces new challenges and new experiences. And Content Stack is one of those things that helps us navigate kind of the unknown and new things that get thrown at us that we need to expedite or move quickly on. So let's talk about kind of what the pain points were, and I guess the challenges that we were facing that made us adopt Content Stack, or why we were in the market for a headless CMS. So 3-4 years ago, we actually didn't have a CMS, and for context, we've worked with Content Stack for about 3 years. We really didn't have a CMS. And so our process for content publishing was, you got to put in a dev ticket. And that means you got to fill out your creative brief. You got to wait for it to get routed. You got to wait for a developer to get it and get that free time. And then by the time they have it, in market, you're 2 weeks later. And so in the business of digital experience, it's all about getting the right content in front of the right people at the right time. And if you got a 2-week runway to get to that, it's not going to work, and it wasn't working. So the other aspect and the other pain point that we had was, we want developers to develop. We don't want developers managing content. Developers are incredibly expensive. So if I can have them innovating and building new stuff that will pay out later on versus posting, typo fixes or uploading an asset, that's ideal, right? And then lastly, how do we automate our business as usual? not only do we automate the automatable in the residential mortgage industry, I want to automate the automatable in my job and for everybody who's on my team. So that was another critical component as to why we were looking for a platform that allowed us to hit all those marks.
That's awesome. And you touched on a couple of things that I just want to dig into a little bit more. So I've read that you guys talk about 2 weeks to 2 minutes, and you kind of mentioned the 2-week runway. It would be interesting to hear what you mean by that.
2 weeks to 2 minutes wasn't really what we had set out to do. We didn't really know how much we'd be able to automate. Now content publishing, because we can allow stakeholders in the organization to be self-serving, or our copywriters or content team can publish content on their own. Or even we can have a vendor that comes in, like our PR firm can come in and post content for us. So because they can all manage that themselves, it takes now 2 weeks, or it was 2 weeks to publish content. Now we're down to about 2 minutes. So if you have the content, you know what you want to upload, or you're the business owner and you know what change you want to make on the site and you have the access to do so, within 2 minutes you're live.
What I think is really powerful about that, and then sort of, tagging onto the message you said earlier about letting developers build innovation and do things that are more innovative. One of the things that I talk about a lot in building companies, and this is my 4th company, where you build teams, and then your responsibility in the leadership team, the leadership side of things, is ensuring that you're giving your employees the ability to do the best work of their career. And fixing like minor typos is not the best work, especially if you're a developer. Whether you're expensive or not, it's more about whether you're engaged and excited about what you're doing. And I love that that's actually a byproduct of what Content Stack has brought to the table for many organizations. It's just allowing people to kind of do what they're good at, and even empowering editors to do what they're good at, which is developing content, building that content, pushing it out quickly, and doing it in a timely manner so that you can capture, just dynamically capture the audience that you're trying to address. So that's been a really powerful thing that we've learned from some of what you guys have done. So that's cool. Thanks for mentioning that as well. I know in the process of choosing Content Stack and just kind of deciding that that was the path to go on, headless is kind of an interesting word. I've actually not really loved it, but it's something that has stuck, and it drives a lot of attention to us. But just, talking about like choosing the path forward and deciding to modernize what you guys are doing, and then what some of the obstacles are. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so any vendor that we onboard goes through a pretty rigorous security process. Just the nature of our business and the share of market that we have a lot of data, and our top priority is to make sure that it's always secure. So any vendor that we bring in that has access to anything goes through a very lengthy process. So that was the hurdle that I was most concerned about when we were onboarding was, okay, we got to go through the security process. They have to check every box. So if you don't check every box, you're not going to be a vendor of ours. Content Stack actually made it through pretty quick, and it was a total breeze. So getting our security team and engineers in contact with Content Stack's security team and engineers, they had that conversation pretty quick. So that's the big obstacle, not just for Content Stack, but any vendor that we onboard. Now, specific to Content Stack, and when we were setting out to do this, take on an API headless-based CMS, we weren't really thinking about access control, but from a security perspective, it's something they brought up. And one of the things that helped expedite the process of onboarding Content Stack and getting the buy-in from our security org was there's granular access controls where I can say, if you're on our people organization, you can manage the people section of the site, not everything else. So it also helps us avoid folks crossing lanes and stepping on toes. And you just own, we own the house, but our business units are really renting out their rooms, and we want to make sure they only have access to their rooms. So that was another huge component for us that helped expedite onboarding Content Stack. But further than that, we needed an audit trail, so some way of knowing who posted what and when. So not only do we have that within the dashboard that a user can sign into through webhooks and the APIs that Content Stack provides, we've also found creative ways to innovate and build notifications that go to email and Slack so we know when something's published. One of the challenges is when you start giving keys away to the house is you kind of lose that transparency as to who's doing what. And when we get audited for everything that we do, we got to make sure that we have that trail. So being able to know when something gets published and just give it a second pair of eyes, incredibly useful. So I think I covered on the primary obstacle was the security aspect, but there were other things that we just didn't know we needed that, out of the box just really help, get implemented with Content Stack a lot quicker.
I love that. I love the Slack integration example, and just thinking about part of your mission to automate the automatable, and that being easy to do and kind of out of the box essentially makes things a lot easier. In terms of essentially thinking about ROI, right? What Ellie Mae does from an ROI perspective and measuring operational efficiency, or just measuring the result of implementing a digital experience platform like this. How do you guys think about that? What do you track? How do you evaluate your ROI?
Okay, yeah. So this is where I put the boring director hat on, and we go through capacity planning exercises, and we try to figure out what are the business as usual items that we find ourselves doing either on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. What are those things that we can automate, but then assigning a value to it? So I know in Jira for the engineering side, sometimes they do t-shirt sizes. We looked at the length of time that it takes to accomplish a task. So we try to put some sort of framework or template around that. Once we have that and we know who's working on those tasks, we can assign a monetary value to them or a cost. So from there, we have this baseline of what it costs for us to do something if we don't automate it. And then when we do start to automate it, we start to see, and we can actually forecast before we start automating what the benefits are going to be. So effectively, by implementing this CMS and automating a lot of the content publishing that we do, or allowing stakeholders to do it, immediately the CMS started paying for itself.
That's awesome. Yeah, we talk about return on investment sort of in the modern world being return on experience, or ROE. And that's something that we're really proud that Content Stack contributes to in large organizations. It's been really great to see. In terms of, I was thinking about a use case that we remember at the beginning of this sort of pandemic hitting, and you guys had a pretty large physical conference organized and planned, and it had to shift quickly to a virtual conference. And I heard about it like after it was already done. Like it seemed like it happened really fast. Can you kind of just talk about what that experience was like and what you guys learned, and any best practices you might share?
Yeah, it did happen pretty fast. And I think the 4-week heads up that we got of we need to take this physical conference to a virtual environment. I think during that 4 weeks, we were on pure adrenaline, just getting it done. But the challenges that we faced in doing that was, how do you take all the content you have for a physical conference where we have around 3,500 to 4,000 mortgage professionals come to one of the largest user events in the industry? How do you take that and in 4 weeks turn it virtual? But take all that content that folks are used to having in person, those experiences that folks are used to having in person, whether it be the hallway conversations or the ability to connect with subject matter experts. So again, going back to how can we automate the automatable, when we talk about ROI and costs associated with the act of doing, there's also an opportunity cost that we face. So if we had a 4-week runway time to get this thing live, and our developers were focused on content and posting content, the opportunity cost is they couldn't focus on other ways to innovate and actually build out a virtual event from the ground up. So there's that challenge, but also having that CMS to help us automate. Maybe we don't like the word headless, but the API-based aspect of it allowed us to not have to move a bloated framework over into a new environment, that we could leverage existing content that we already had in the cloud and pull it into an experience that we had elsewhere. So that helped expedite quite a bit. Now we had not only did we have the challenge before the event when we got the word that, hey, we're going to go virtual with this, we actually had challenges during the event, such as we set out to get all the content up, make it available on demand. There really wasn't going to be this aspect of a live component, just with the timing that we had. In the first week of the event, we pivoted and we added a live component. And so going back to automating the automatable, the automated publishing that we had within Content Stack allowed all these live events to trigger over to on-demand events seamlessly and push those on-demand events into the on-demand library that users could come in and actually engage with at a later date. So there was all these triggers that were in place that fired just perfectly because we had this platform that allowed us to do that.
That's amazing. It was almost like a flip of the switch, but with, of course, a lot of thought and precision.
Yeah.
Awesome. So just thinking about other things that the team gets excited about is just uncovering how you and your team were able to find new and interesting ways to use Content Stack. And, you know, Content Stack's probably most known as a headless CMS or content management system, but the event's a really good example. I think there's other examples that you have of how you were able to use Content Stack to do other things in your organization. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. Part of what we try to do when we talk about operational efficiency or try to bootstrap is to leverage existing technology. And if we have gaps anywhere, try to push our existing vendors and technology to that limit of seeing how we can innovate there and find creative new ways to leverage it. So one of my favorite projects that we just wrapped up was we built an internal ad server to run promotions and advertisements across not only all of our digital assets, but even in product. And we built all of this on top of Content Stack, meaning every ad that we serve actually comes through Content Stack. We can also control the flight times in an ad zone automatically through automated publishing. So it never really works out this way, but if you have an editorial calendar where you know what you're going to be promoting 12 months in advance, if you really wanted to, within Content Stack, you can schedule all this stuff 12 months in advance and have that creative in place, and it just kind of runs itself. So yeah, a really exciting project that we had recently that we built on top of Content Stack was an ad server. If we want to talk about the savings and costs that we had there, we reduced about $60,000 of spend that we could put towards other things by leveraging technology that we already had. And so we have really in-depth insights into how everything's performing. We can see how many impressions that we're getting on our ads. And we launched it back in February, and over this 6-7 month period, we've had about 50 million ad impressions. So that's 50 million times that Content Stack has served something out of its system flawlessly. We've had zero issues. So that's one way that we've innovated with Content Stack. There's going to be plenty more. I know it. Content Stack is flexible enough to let us do that.
So let's talk about that a little bit. You know, and you guys have obviously been an incredible example of building out a digital experience platform essentially within your organization to do multiple things. If you think about kind of looking forward, what are some of the things that you think you and the team are looking forward to or planning on doing? You know, what's next for you from a digital transformation perspective?
Continue to automate the automatable. That's core for us, but not just operational efficiency. We're very customer focused and everything's user centric. So it's building out those experiences that resonate better with our users and increase engagement. So not just getting more people into our properties, but getting them to do more. The Content Stack allows us to do, and what we're looking forward to iterating on, is it allows us to fail quickly, pivot, learn, and then build something better. So at a higher level, that's what I'm looking forward to the most as we continue to build out these experiences, especially in this new digital world, is that flexibility to fail fast and build the best thing that we can, which I think is the best thing in the industry for our users, whether it be customers, prospects, our partners, talent acquisition, just our whole audience. We want to put the best thing in front of them that we can. And so having a platform that's flexible and we can quickly pivot is critical to making that happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think in general, I mean, outside of just Content Stack falls into this category, but just the mock approach to, you know, how you build technology and content. And for those of you that haven't heard the term mock before, it's MACH, which is microservices, API first, cloud native, and headless, all terms that essentially mean you have the opportunity to build technology based on a modern architecture that uses the best of breed services. And when you do that, back to your point, Auden, you're able to fail fast and you can try things. And if they don't necessarily work out, you can flip them out and flip in something new and try to just like learn quickly so that you can innovate more quickly, which I think is super powerful.
Yeah.
In terms of, so you've said automating the automatable multiple times, and it's a vision for the company and a mission that you're on. Can you talk about some of the tasks that you're automating? This is actually an audience question. So what other tools do you use, or what are you integrating with, and essentially, what does that mean to you now and moving forward?
So we touched on the automated publishing, but it's also another area that we focus on is how do we get systems to talk nicely to each other. So when we talk about virtual events, there's other vendors that are involved that, if we have a mobile app, we also need to have content over there. So we don't want somebody to have to publish content in our content management system, Content Stack, and then have to go over to another vendor and then publish content there. The other issue that you have with that when you're managing content across different systems is you start maintaining spreadsheets, and that's when the whole idea of automation just gets blown apart. So being able to hook into other systems and automate, not just the when things go live, but the actual human spackle that's involved with getting something from one system to another. That's another area that we're going to continuously focus on, especially as we start bringing in additional vendors to support this new digital world. That's the big one that's in front of us right now when we talk about automation. So not just getting the content live, but getting it to the various systems that it needs to be. And when we make an update in one place, it propagates out to these various areas.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Content Stack webinar. We apologize for the challenges. I know we still had a few folks on the line when our line dropped off. This is the world of Zoom, and that happens sometimes. But I would like to re-welcome Auden to the stage, and we'll just complete with a few questions that were posed to us while we were just wrapping up last time. So let me just start with this. We had a question about just growth in using the product and kind of where you started to where you are now and what a customer might expect in that journey.
Yeah, so when we initially set out to look for a headless content platform, the idea was around our main corporate property, LMA.com.
Right.
So that was our initial focus. And going back to earlier in the discussion, talking about how very quickly the platform started paying for itself, immediately through implementation, the ROI that we achieved and the value that we got was very quickly recognized on just LMA.com. But from there, we actually saw all the other potential and opportunity that was available to us in the platform, and we rolled it out to other properties that we own. Like our virtual conference that we put on was heavily dependent on having a flexible content platform, content experience platform to run on. And then going back to the innovative ways that we've leveraged this platform to do other things, building the ad server on top of that. So it's the value that we've achieved out of not just the initial goal that we had, but also the other properties and programs that we've rolled out to is, I don't want to say immeasurable because I'm pretty strict about measuring everything in the ROI that we get, but I can say that it's more value and ROI that we get out of any other vendor that we leverage for technology within our stack. So hopefully that covers.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thanks for covering that. What I love to hear when I get to reconnect with customers, months after their first implementation is how they're thinking about using the platform again for something else. And often it's even for something that they had not originally anticipated, which to me is really exciting because it shows the value of the platform. And as we continue to grow as a company, we're also learning new use cases where the platform's being adopted. So thanks for sharing that. Kind of related to it, another question was just about your post-sales experience with the team. And, I'm really proud that we as Content Stack have this great rating on Gartner and G2 Crowd, really coming from customers talking about how great our customer success team is and how our post-sales experience is great. But I'd love to just have you paint that picture from the real world.
Sure. So being in marketing, I always tell our marketers I'm the worst person to sell to because I'm so I don't check my email. If I see a vendor come in trying to pitch something, I don't even open it. And the usual process that I'm used to whenever you kind of go through the onboarding process is they are your best friend up until you convert and you've adopted and implemented, and after that they're kind of like, well, now you got to go through, these people. I have to focus on this over here. Didn't have that experience with Content Stack, and that's a attribute or a reason as to why we've been a customer for so long and plan to be for going forward, is the support that we received after implementation, that our developers, as they run into questions or just need help to be pushed in some direction, they can get that same day support and sometimes real-time support that they need. And not just the technical support that we receive, but also the relationship that we've built with Content Stack, and trying to achieve this goal of technology powering the American dream. It's important for us to work with vendors and partner with other organizations that have similar cultures to ours. So it's from day one, it's kind of felt like this one big family. And as Content Stack has grown in the 4 years that we've been partners, Ellie Mae has also grown. So we've kind of grown together, experienced similar things, and then also just being able to reach out and on a personal level, be able to connect with the folks over at Content Stack. Again, it's just not something you see a lot of, especially in this fast-paced, SaaS digital B2B world. It's not just a relief to have that kind of support, but also it's just a great sign of things to come.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. We have internally within our team this concept of one team, one dream, and it's something we share and we bring it up all the time. We try to get aligned, and as we continue to grow, that becomes a really important part of our mantra. And we think about that as extending to our customer and partner community. So I'm glad you feel some of that vibe that we share. So those are all the questions that came in. I just want to thank you again, Auden, for spending some time with us, and apologize again to the crowd who had dialed in. We did not mean to rudely hang up on you. Hopefully you're able to catch what you want here, and would be happy to learn more about your needs if you want to reach out to us. And thank you again.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.